Hi, my name's John McCague. I'm a licensed real estate agent with Lepage RCR in Alliston. I'm preparing a series of short videos regarding topics related to real estate. I get asked from time to time questions about real estate, and what I'm doing is I'm putting a series of videos together on the most common topics that are asked. Hopefully you'll find this useful. So this topic today is regarding easements, encroachments, and right-of-ways. Those are generally rural properties. However, there are easements and sometimes encroachments on in-town properties as well. We've run across some instances of that, especially to do with utilities. So by definition, an easement is a right to cross someone else's property for a specific purpose. So an example of that would be a utility. So it'd be hydro or Enbridge gas or water, something like that. And where do you see these easements? You can see them across the front of a property, or sometimes you can see them across the back of a property. How does that impact your property? An easement means that you have limited use of that space, so you wouldn't be able to erect, say, a building, like a small storage shed or something like that, over the easement, because the utilities have to be able to gain access to that easement. They need to be able to, if they at some time, if they have a problem with the utility, they need to be able to dig up the ground, make the repair, and then repair the ground back to its original state. But if you have a building over it, obviously they're not going to be able to gain access to it. So does an easement affect value? Sometimes it can. If the easement, if the backyard, for example, isn't a large backyard to begin with, and it cuts your backyard, basically the usable space down, it's still usable, but the space that you can actually put like a building or something like that on, if it cuts it down by 50%, well then yes, it would affect the value of the property. But there's an awful lot of properties in town that do have easements. And again, you have easements in the country as well. So they could be hydro lines, they could be the overhead, the towers that go through a property, a farm. That's considered an easement. Then you get into encroachments. What's an encroachment? Well, an encroachment is an intrusion on a person's property. So that could be something like a fence. So if a neighbor wasn't following, if there had never been a survey done on the property and they just haphazardly put up a fence, and that fence happens to come over onto your property, that would be considered an encroachment. Does that affect the value of the property? It doesn't necessarily affect the value of the property. It just makes it more difficult when somebody's purchasing the property. They want that encroachment fixed. So then it's a matter of contacting the person who's doing the encroaching and having them correct the problem. So if it's a matter of taking down a fence and then them having to put up the fence again, that may be the case, and yeah, that would be possibly a bit of a hiccup. But they're not all that common, but they're common enough, especially on older properties, properties that maybe haven't necessarily sold in 50 or 100 years, and there was never a survey done. People just said, oh, that's just the way the fence has always been, and we never really worried about it. So the last of the three is a right-of-way, and the right-of-way is a legal right via either usage, so they've always been using it, or a grant to travel across a specific route across someone's property. So I'll use an example. I sold a property a few years ago where they didn't have road access. The only way that they could actually get access to their property is going across someone else's property. So there was a laneway that went along the side of the other person's property. Now, it had been there for quite some time, the right-of-way, and so when the property was sold, the property that required the right-of-way went along with the property. So the other property owner couldn't prevent the new owner from going across the property using the right-of-way. Now, these three things, easement, encroachment, and right-of-way, at least the easement and the right-of-way, are usually registered on title. So you would consult with your lawyer. Your lawyer would be aware that yes, there is an easement, or yes, there is a right-of-way, and it's right on the when it was registered. So that certainly helps in the legal aspect of it. If it isn't, then it should be registered on title. The easiest way to prevent these problems from happening is to have an up-to-date survey, and to make sure that you are aware of where the boundaries are, so that you can monitor them. So if somebody was to come along and say they wanted to put up a fence, you make sure that they stay on their side of the property. That way you don't run into the legal issues, and you don't run into the hiccups when the property goes to sell at the time of sale. How do we address that in real estate? We usually address it right in an offer to purchase when the property goes to sell. And so we will either mention that there is an easement, there is a right-of-way, or there is an encroachment. If there is an encroachment, the encroachment has to be remedied, because chances are, if you're trying to get financing for the property, they will not accept the fact that there's an encroachment unless it's been there for quite some time, and it's or if it's a minor issue. But if it's a major issue, then you get into some hiccups. So lawyers will generally help to address that. They'll work between the buyer's lawyer and the seller's lawyer to remedy the problem, but it's real estate's responsibility to make sure that the buyer and the seller are aware that there are those issues, the easement, encroachment, or right-of-way, and to make sure that that gets passed on in a conditional offer, that all parties are aware of that. So hopefully that helps out, at least brings to attention the three items that I just mentioned. And if you have any further questions, feel free to contact me. My name is John McCague. I'm a licensed sales representative with Lepage RCR in Alliston. We're at 7 Victoria Street in Alliston. My phone numbers, my Toronto line is 1-866-772-5368. My local, 705-435-3000. My cell is 705-791-2221. Feel free to contact me anytime regarding these items or any other real estate related issue that you come across. As I say, I'm putting a series of short videos together. This is just one of them. The other topics will also be related to real estate, some of them related specifically to rural, and some of them related to real estate in general. So hopefully you'll find them handy, and feel free to provide me with any feedback. Thanks very much for your time, and have a great day.